If you know me, you know that I don't like Kafe, much like a piece of bread that's been left out too long. It's stale, moldy, and just disgusting to look at this point. That said, when a team does try something new finally, it does catch my attention. And we saw that in the APAC SI qualifiers where Fnatic tried and had mixed results to break the kitchen bomb site on the bottom floor. Let's jump into the video and see how they went about doing it. All right, let's start off by looking at the setup for this site. As you can see, we're about a minute into the round, so we can see what's been set up and where everyone is positioned. In terms of player count, there's only one defender on site, and this is the player right here. I'll just confirm that that is the Valkyrie, and it is just sitting on cams. And that's the only player. So information gathering, playing deep inside of site. The setup itself is very default. The only thing really that's of note is that prep has been left soft, but with no one directly defending areas inside of the objective itself, it's not really an issue. Lines of sight also established from red stairs, and there's also lines of sight on the connecting wall from the main double door. In terms of the actual setup though, upstairs is where it gets really interesting. So we head up above, and as you can see, there's a lot of vertical lines of sight established, and I'm just going to draw boxes around these soft floors here. So we have mining, we have train, and finally we have dining. And this will start, I hope, to turn the cogs in your brain as to how Fnatic, in theory, are going about trying to break this objective. I'll use a second color just to highlight where the vertical lines of sight have been established, keeping in mind that, of course, these actual lines of sight would extend further than where the holes are, but gives you at least an indication as to the theory behind this setup. So we'll just circle the final ones here. There's also a shield here, so Fnatic are investing some util into holding these positions, of course, because they want to play off the vert. Now, using the powers of technology, we can toggle back down and get an overlay as to how this particular site is being played out. I'll use a black box for this area here. So this has no soft floor above it. So this is an area that's difficult for the defense to deny. That's why Mag on the Valk is playing deep inside of sight. They probably have information on this position and can rotate back to deny if required. But back to the vertical discussion, you can see just how much of the site is exposed. You pretty much cannot plant except for that black box without being contested up above. So Fnatic are forcing one of two things, either for Sandbox to force something into Kafe, which is going to be really, really challenging, or to clear up above because they can't plant on site. Looking at it from Sandbox's perspective now, they have read into this. Now, I believe Fnatic did attempt this strat in an earlier game. I can't remember if it was on stream or not, so I don't know exactly how Sandbox knew about it or if they even knew about it at all. But based on the way they approached this objective, they looked very, very confident. Now, they themselves will use the vertical of the sledge, for instance, to try and counteract the vert from the defense. So it's vert on top of vert, but it is pretty interesting to watch. And I'll do something similar to what I did on the last objective, where I'll draw where the soft breach is up above and what Fnatic need to be mindful of. Now, this is the big weakness of this defensive setup, is how do you as a defender contest these areas and prevent Sandbox or your opponent from getting access to this vertical control? Because in the space of about 20 seconds, we've seen just how much of a footprint the attackers have been able to establish, and it's very difficult to retake these positions once you have lost them. So again, we'll toggle down and we'll see what exactly the attackers are able to expose. And as you can see, it's almost the entirety of the setup now for Fnatic, which has been exposed up above. Of course, dining is very difficult for the attack to access, so this is a bit of a safe haven, and there is the hatch to drop down. So I think the fundamental theory here from Fnatic is pretty sound in forcing the attack to do something specific. However, it does raise questions as to whether or not it wastes enough time, because we're not even at the halfway point, and Sandbox is really forcing Fnatic out of these power positions. And in theory, Sandbox now can rotate over towards Bakery, pressure positions in towards site. And as you can see, the entire setup has already been forfeited. So all of these vertical holes that I was raving about before have pretty much been made redundant already. by the attack with no opportunity for retake. Now, as we approach the last 70 seconds of the round, Fnatic are starting to whittle in numbers, and Ramu will actually make a bit of a hero attempt here. He actually sneaks back into this position up above to recontest the vert and hopefully support his teammates and maybe catch Sandbox off guard. But Sandbox themselves have been so disciplined, and you can see now that Sledge is actually still up above, and that means that Warden really can't sit here safely. At best, Fnatic can get a 1-for-1 trade, but at its worst for them, this is what's going to happen. Sledge is continually watching the vert. He has drones and I think spots out the Warden, and then it's as easy as him going on the vert, taking down that Warden. And well and truly now Fnatic have lost complete control up above. So not only can they not deny plant, but in theory now the attack can actually use this entire setup against them. So it has crumbled apart. And that's unfortunate because, as I mentioned, I love seeing innovation on such a stale map like Kafe, but sometimes ideas can be flawed. Sometimes there are cracks in the armor. And this is just a great example of, as an attack, being able to identify the weaknesses of a setup, exploiting them quite quickly, and then forcing the defense into unfavorable positions. But that will conclude the video. Sandbox did manage to win out the round, but again, credit to Fnatic. They tried something new. It just didn't quite land. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.